This particular layout is really important for anybody who's looking at currencies because more than any other market, and I think this is important in every market, but really more than any other market, foreign exchange, which includes currency futures and which also includes the ETFs on the currencies, like the FXE and FXC, those kinds of ETFs, it's all about contrast. It's all about, am I buying a strong currency against a weak one? Or am I shorting a weak currency against a strong one? It's really not something that people outside the currency world have to think so acutely about. It's absolutely at the heart of watch list building when it comes to foreign exchange. Now, I think a lot of market participants understand relative performance in a somewhat similar way. Here's the NASDAQ. We look at the larger tide, in this case the NQ, and then all the individual boats that make up the NASDAQ futures or the QQQ ETF. And we realize that where the NASDAQ goes is going to be predicated on these names. So amongst these names, and even against the NASDAQ, you can see relative performance or relative weakness, right? Performance, strength or weakness. So you would just prioritize the names that are weak, the reds, and you would, for shorts, and you would prioritize the names that are green primarily for buys. And that kind of relative performance people do, I think most market participants understand and they have to use, but currencies are the same but more. Once I understand what the main strength and weakness currencies are, in the case of the foreign exchange markets, which again affects every kind of asset class that would trade currency. So let's, for example, I could trade the Euro US Forex. I could trade the 6E futures, or I could trade the FXE ETF, but the main marketplace is the Euro US. So to do anything on the 6E or the FXE really is and should be dependent on what levels and what price levels the Euro US is at, because that price is the most important globally, not where the futures are trading and certainly not where the ETFs are trading. But you can use any one of these asset classes to trade the euro, including the options on the 6E and FXE, but you want to start with the Euro US. The Euro US is going to give you the best idea of what's happening with the US dollar. The US dollar happens to be one of two currencies that I would consider right now to be strength stories. In other words, if I'm looking to get long or short a currency, it's the yen and the US dollar that I want to buy. So these are strength stories, and I want to buy them. And I want to buy them, so let's think of it this way, against weaker currencies. The two best weakness stories we've got are the euro and the franc. So you would say, well, Raghee, you telling me that buy yen, sell euro, buy yen, sell franc is a great trade? It's going to be the best place to look for trend continuation. Are you telling me that, say, buy US dollar, short euro, buy US dollar, short franc is going to be the best place for a trade? Again, it's going to be the best place for trend continuation because you're buying two strong currencies and you're selling the weak stories. And when you set up your watch list for currencies like this, trend and pair selection is almost automated. Now, there are a couple sites that help out with this. One would be the FinViz site. So you can look at the 1 day performance of the Forex, 1 week, 1 month. I mean, that's going to vary on the time frame that you would like to use. And then the other one is from a company called Awanda, and they make this heat map available for free. You can just Google Awanda heat map, and then there it is, currency strength heat map. So just Google that, and it'll take you right to the link. And this is a very effective way of looking at strength and weakness because they're literally laid up against each other, like just one next to the other. And that just easily means, all right, well, if I'm looking back at the last month, there's my strength story in the US dollar. Here's my weakness story in the euro. Franc shorts pretty much are going to work across the board. Some of you might say, Rog, what about New Zealand dollar franc? Absolutely. Sure, no problem. Canadian dollar franc, yeah, I have no problem with that. The Canadian dollar's come on really strong lately. But from both a trend and a macroeconomic standpoint, I like the US dollar yen buys and euro and Swiss shorts. So I'm going to superimpose a little bit of my macro understanding of what's going on in those economies on top of the trend and the contrast. Hope that helps. That's the way to build a currency watch list.